This program is designed to provide general information with regards to the subject matters covered. This information is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, sponsors, or station are engaged in rendering any specific and personal, medical, financial, legal, counseling, professional service, or any advice. You should seek the services of competent professionals before applying or trying any suggested ideas.
Hi, welcome to the Sound of Gold. If you've been here before, welcome back. If you're new, welcome. Basically, my whole idea for doing this show is to focus on music, musicians, music teachers, and music schools, as well as various music programs in our school system. And I'm a big advocate for keeping music alive, keeping musicians alive, and there's so much that goes into playing an instrument. There's so much. Sorry, I have a cat here who's wanting to get all the attention, so she's going to have to share my attention today. This is Callie. So with that being said, with music, there's just so much to dive into. There's so much to cover, and if you're a musician, you get it. It's a never-ending journey. It's a never-ending, like you never get to a point where like, okay, that's it. I know what I need to know, and move on. It's just you're forever growing, and that's the beauty of being a musician, is that there's never too much to learn. And the beauty of being a musician amongst musicians is that we get to help each other and learn from each other as well. Over the years, I'm a music teacher. I teach piano. I'm a piano performer as well. I still, even though I'm a teacher and a performer, I still take lessons occasionally, and I still follow other teachers that inspire me. One of those teachers is Gregg Goodhart, and he's otherwise known as the Learning Coach. He does a lot of online classes, and his research has been such an inspiration to me that I've let my students know about him as well. And I even take classes from him, and love to learn from him. And I'd love to welcome him today to our show. Gregg Goodhart, are you with us? Yes, you are.
I'm right here. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, thank you so much for making us a part of your day today.
Thank you for having me. I really, really enjoy being here, especially things you said got me thinking already, but go ahead.
So I have to say, and I always start my show off with just, I'm an honest, transparent person just because it's easier to live that way. But to say up front, I've been following you for years. So I almost feel like I know you because I follow I follow your webinars. I follow your, what you have on YouTube. I follow you on Musicality U. Your practiclasses. I've had one of my students, Eileen, has been working with you as well. And I am a huge advocate for learning. And I feel like for me personally, I can never learn enough. And you just give me that vibe that you are so into like learning and learning more. And what I said at the beginning of the show is like, there's so much depth to musicality, and there's so much. It not only goes into music, like to learn music, you can use some of the tactics in so many different areas of life as well. So, there's so much ground to cover within the time frame that we have. Let me ask you, where would you like to begin? Tell me something about like what inspired you. Let's start with that. What inspired you to begin this journey in music?
It's funny. I wrote down a couple of things you said that I was going to say something about. But when you said I'm a teacher and I still go and learn things from other teachers, that's how it happened to me too. I was teaching. I've been a teacher for decades, and before I did this business, the latest one was 13 years at a high school running a music program for my instrument, and then hiring other teachers, doing all this stuff. And I got to a point not long into it. I was a good teacher, in quotes. I won awards and everything. But not long into it, I realized I can't get my students past a certain level. I don't know how it's done. And I did it like a lot of music teachers do it. Try this. No, that didn't work. Try that. Oh, that worked a little bit. Try this. What are we doing? What this brings me to is the most exciting thing, how I got here, because I realized I hit a ceiling. I have a master's degree in music, and I couldn't play nearly as well as I should have been able to play with that amount of work. I should be touring the world with the amount of work that I did. And I knew, I had an idea. It wasn't talent or some magical force, but that's what we think it is. Which brings me to exactly what I was thinking when you were talking about going to other teachers. We have something now, and we've had it. Well, we've always had it as humans. We now have it described in research and science. We always wonder, can I do this? If I've got a student who needs to do this, what should I try to get it done? We try it. And if it doesn't really work, we try something else. Oh, no. We now have the ability to know that if we ask someone to learn something and they do it exactly as we ask them to do it, which is not 10 hours a day and hanging from the ceiling and counting 1,000 cars as they drive by or whatever. It's nothing like that. It really takes less time. You got to introduce it the right way. That's kind of the art of teaching it. We know with certainty that someone will learn. And when they come back to me and they haven't learned, I say, well, you did something that wasn't what I said. So let's look. And then we go through the process. Aha, right there. Oh, I didn't realize that. And once you get it down, you're guaranteed to get it. Reminds me of something you were talking about, how this applies to everything in life. And my wife was talking, she's in the financial industry, and my wife was talking about, it takes 3 months to onboard people, and she's not talking about like financial brokers, and she's talking about the people who support the brokers. And, there's a lot going on. You got to send emails and packages, and people are out doing presentations, but it's not something that requires a doctorate. Okay. And these people come in and they can learn. And she said, it takes 3 months to figure out if they're going to do it or not. I said, I could tell you in 3 weeks. And by the time we got to the 3rd week, it would be, you're not following directions. If you would, you'll do great and get all sorts of raises because you're going to learn to do it well and you're going to be wonderful. But if you just don't want to do it, no harm, no foul, but we'll have to shake hands and each walk different directions. Yeah. And it's so much easier that way when you know what you assign will work. And if you know enough about it, you can predict the stages people will go through as they learn it. And they're amazed. Like, you said I'd think this, and that's exactly what I thought, and I almost quit, but then I thought this, like you said I would. You see it enough, it all happens the same way. Folks, y'all have as much talent as you need, and learning works the same for everybody. We just get there in different ways.
So that brings me to the talent code. I've read it twice. I get something out of it each time. I think maybe that's just being human. So share something with us with our listeners who have not read it and where they can find it, and tell us a little bit about it.
Oh yeah, my book, Cracking the Talent Code. There's actually another book called The Talent Code, which is a good book. So that is so researchers will tell you, and there's papers on this, there's a researcher named Hardiman who's talked a lot about this, is there is a gap in between the science and all of the rest of humanity that wants to learn. And we got a lot of frustrated people out there who want to learn and can't learn, no matter how hard they try. I just thought of something recently. It's a tagline I'm going to use. Kids don't dislike school because they dislike learning. Kids dislike school because they dislike not learning. That's the problem. If you actually taught them all how to learn and they all knew they would get everything with a small amount of work, it would be a totally different ballgame. And I know this because I will never forget walking out of my 3rd grade classroom on the last day and the teacher standing at the door saying, "You passed by the skin of your teeth." Her exact words. Okay, that's the kind of student I was. I now realize it's because I didn't know how to learn. So in this role of an interpreter, someone who's in between, professors don't know how to speak teacher. Researchers do not know how to speak teacher. Yes. At a graduate university with a select group of people, you do not know what it's like to go out into the real world and have to get people on board with learning. The people in your classes can drop out at mid-semester if they're not doing well. I taught high school. No one gets to drop out. You have to have either you teach them or you're dealing with the parents. So you have to learn exactly how everything works so you can be confident into what you're doing. Teachers, on the other hand, first have too much to deal with to really be doing a lot of this stuff. It became an obsession for me, like music was at one time. So that's what that was. And researchers don't speak teacher, and teachers don't know how to speak the research language. It took forever for me to learn how to read studies and everything. So once I figured all that out and then could dive in and go deeper, the whole magic of the thing was, how do I get in the middle there where I could take the best of the research, not the surface stuff, which is a lot of what you see people marketing the science. Oh, spacing, you should do your practice at different times. Sure, you should, but spacing is a lot more complex and a lot more subtle and applicable than just that. In fact, that whole workshop your student's taking with me right now, the first 4 weeks is all spacing only, and it's spaced repetition. Anyway, I'm getting into something else. So I said, what do I need to do to get this into, this is my superpower that I've developed, and all teachers should develop this. How do I make anyone understand this stuff so they can use it? And the answer, and that's what that book is. It's trying to get people to understand, look at all these gateways. Here's the gateway to learn about talent. Here's what I found. You can go ahead and look at the research and see what you find. All these little gateways in, and then you can start using it, which takes a long time. But if you can find someone who can teach it, which there aren't that many, and I will tell you this secret. Teachers, I will tell you this secret to teaching all this stuff. Look up something called cognitive load theory. You have to reduce the amount of things your working memory pays attention to down to an amount it can handle. Otherwise, you will reach too much confusion and won't learn. Well, my gosh, then how do people do trigonometry? Because the working memory only holds 5 to 7 pieces of information, and trigonometry, you've got to automatize all the previous knowledge and have it in your long-term memory. The teacher has to find exactly what that is, exactly what can get in through working memory into long-term memory, and then start building that up. And that's what I spent my life doing.
So there, I have a few thoughts in my head, and I don't want to forget any of them. Interleaving and spacing.
Thank you.
With our audience, interleaving. What does that mean, and how does that relate to spacing?
Thanks, because you've gotten into an area that most everyone gets confused. People think, well, if you let spacing means take more breaks. That's part of retrieval practice, but it means change up what you're doing every 10 minutes, which is correct. But that's not spacing specifically, as far as I'm concerned, refers, and in the things I've read, refers to spaced repetition. Interleaving, and I'll explain both, interleaving refers to interleaving your learning episodes. A learning episode, I think I just made that word up right now, a learning episode, but it's how long you sit and work on something. I'm going to learn about the how Congress works. Okay, I'm going to sit there and read. Well, I'll do it for an hour to figure out 2 chambers and all this stuff. Okay, but you don't want to do that for an hour. What you really want to do is do it for 10 minutes and do something else for 10 minutes and then do that for 10 minutes and do something else. You want to constantly shift what you're doing. It should feel uncomfortable, and you should switch before you truly understand what you're doing. I know it sounds weird. And then spacing is spaced repetition. We're used to doing 10 or 25 or 30 or 50 reps in a row. Look up something called the power law of learning. By about the 3rd or 4th rep, they're almost useless. That's why we do all these reps and it doesn't work. What you want to do is do 1 repetition spaced out by 5 or 10 minutes, once and only once for about 3 or 4 days. Try that, everybody. You'll be amazed.
So I've been playing, this is not about me, but I'm getting to my point. I've been playing for over 45 years, not to give my age away. I'm older than that, but anyway, 2 words you had said in one of your webinars or something I read, problem solving.
Yes.
The light bulb went off for me personally because it's no problem for me to sit and play just by heart. It just comes through me. To sit and play somebody else's music and to read their music, I have no problem reading. But chunking it in portions and segments of it and looking at it like a problem-solving equation, like for 5-10 minutes, my brain is completely focused. I'm not thinking about what's for dinner. I'm not thinking about where I have to go tomorrow. I'm not thinking about who I need to call. I am completely there. So giving myself that break of, and for everybody, maybe it's different, but that those 2 words, problem solving, my brain goes, ooh, you got my attention. What are we doing? And so that's another reason why I connected with you as well as I have you on the show, is because I'm learning. I've learned so much from you. I continue to learn so much from you. And just little things that you say and that you've researched and that you offer to teach is just so like, aha, for me anyway. And I know you have other students too, and I'm sure they feel that way. In what ways can students reach out to you to learn more about your courses?
Oh, my website is gregggoodhart.com. I think you see my little logo down there. That's right. That's 3 G's in a row in the middle. Some poor sap is missing a G because I got all the G's in that part of that naming part of the world. Like his name's Gary, but everyone calls him Airy because, I took the G. GreggGoodhart.com. Tons of free stuff, but it's kind of overall. Here are some books you can read. Here are others. If you want specific stuff, I have master classes that are in my shop, and I do a monthly practiclass. If we want to at some point talk about that, that's something I invented that hasn't existed before now, and it's part of how you get people hooked into the learning. It's not enough to say, trust me, if you do this, you'll be good in 4 weeks. That's right. If you can do something in 20 minutes that most people thought used to take 4 weeks, then you've grabbed people in. So I've invented that. I do one of those every month, which is open to the whole world and is ridiculously cheap. Based on a lot of times what I get paid to travel around and talk to schools. And as you mentioned, this works in everything. It works in academics. I train teachers. I do professional development I go to music departments, and I go to the academic stuff. So you're right. It's all over the place. So any of that stuff, there's areas of my website, and you can always get in touch with me at hello@gregggoodhart.com.
Yes, it's easy to reach out to you. And, let me ask you the difference, and there might not be a difference, but maybe for our listeners who are just tuning in and haven't worked with you before or know about you. I know you have this ongoing practiclass for the next several weeks, and I know it's your first time putting that together. However, you have the practiclass once a month. So is this?
So this is my marketing problem. I call everything practice something, and then people it's confused. The practiclass is different than I have this 8-week thing going. It's closed right now. I'll offer. This is the third time I've taught it, and then I'll do another one sometime in the future. I haven't decided yet. We have a waiting list you can get on. That's called Perfect Practice. That whole 8-week course, practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect, right? The old saying that I used to say all the time as a teacher. So that's every once in a while I'll offer a course on something. The practiclass is a monthly meeting, and I think everyone has a different idea what the word master class means. But in the music world, there's a master up on stage. You go up, you play your piece, and then the master tells you things that you and your teacher, who's wonderful, but that's a master. They know things that and they give you the master advice during that class. So it's the same format. Come up and play. Except the difference is I'm not going to I don't know, someone playing violin. I don't know how to tell you to interpret violin music. Barely. I'm a classical guitarist. But what I do is say, leave that for the master and leave that for your teacher. You can't move your fingers right there, and you keep making mistakes. You do that every time, don't you? Yep. How do you practice it? Every day. I can't get it. I've been doing it for 4 weeks. That's what we work on. So that's the difference. And every month, it's different people, many times that I've never met, on instruments I've never played. And we just go straight from show me your problem and I'll fix it. And the point is, and that's why I'm so proud of the practiclasses, the point is if it was talent that was holding you back for days, weeks, or months, then how did we just fix it in 20 minutes here? And it's faster, easier, cleaner, much easier to play. And it has a certain impact on people. This is why I do these live when I go to schools. It has a certain impact. I mean, they're live here, but they're not in person. Right. Certain impact on people when you see someone go through it. And you see, how is that? Oh, that was okay. How's that? Oh my gosh, how am I playing it that fast? Here, let's go a little faster. Oh my gosh. And when you see that, that's how it feels. That's how problem solving feels. The reason kids dislike school is not because they dislike learning. The reason kids dislike school is because they dislike not learning. If you would show them how to problem solve in the most basic way, I'm telling you, and this is what goes on in the practiclass, what happens is when you solve even the smallest problem, and any problem that you do not know the answer to once you start working on it is a problem for you. whatever that is. I don't care how basic or how complex. When you solve that, the brain releases dopamine and makes you happy.
Yes.
And then you want to do more. This is the key to self-motivation and self-efficacy. And it creates self-esteem. Everyone wonders where that comes from. How do I create self-esteem in kids? Get them to actually do things they never thought they could otherwise do by obeying cognitive load theory and teaching them in very small ways how to do the most basic steps of problem solving, which is the essence of something called deliberate practice.
I love it. I love it. I have to pause for a second and just apologize to my audience. If you're hearing some background noises, and I know my engineer might hear it too, just a quick, about 3 weeks ago, my daughter and I found a teeny tiny kitten out on the street. And so we rescued her. And so she's healthy now, and she's finally out of confinement. And so if you hear noise in the background, she's just having the time of her life. So I apologize for the noise. It's teeny tiny kitten. So, but anyway, back to what we're talking about. Yeah. You know, what you said about the instrument and about, you know, you play classical guitar, and it doesn't matter what instrument a student comes to you with. And for me personally, I work solely on, I teach on the piano. I teach music theory, but I always tell my students, let's intertwine kind of the theory and the foundations of learning music, because it's a language in itself, but also get to know your instrument, because your instrument, the more you get to know your instrument and how to work it out and take the steps you need to take, you'll find that you can play it smoother, because you tend to own the instrument instead of it owning you.
Yes. I've said things very similar to that. Yes.
Yeah. And so, you know, you had mentioned also with students learning fast. I think it was last week, maybe in one of your classes, you mentioned practice Zen.
Practice Zen.
Practice Zen. And I love that, because your approach to teaching some of, not to give secrets away of your practice class.
Please give them all away. Give them all away.
Your micro practices turn into macro, because you're able to handle it. And it's, again, another lesson in life. The more you can manage a problem, even if it's a measure of music, the more you can manage it, the more control you have as a person. And I think as a human being, we all want to feel that sense of control. Yes. When we are mastering something, right? So you mentioned practice Zen, but then I laugh because I think of like Sesame Street. You talk about the speed monster.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, how do you practice Zen without letting the speed monster take over? And me, myself, I'm working on a piece just for the fun of it, just because I'm playing along with one of your classes and another teacher as well. I have to remind myself to slow down, because it's like human nature. Like you've said it too. You want to get it done like yesterday. Mm-hmm. So, focusing on smaller segments, not for 3 hours, but for 5 minutes here, 10 minutes here. You can do it for 3
hours, just do it in bits with other stuff in between.
Right. And
if you do it that way, you won't need 3 hours, but
you'll find 3 hours goes by pretty quick.
Well, that's the Zen. That's it right there. There's a researcher named Mihai Csikszentmihalyi who spent his whole life.
Is that from the book Flow?
Yes. This is flow. That's what that is when time starts to melt off the clock. If it hasn't happened to your student in my course yet, it will, because that's what starts to happen. You brought up something very interesting. You said you teach the instrument. Let me be really clear. You have to, well, you don't have to, but you have to learn the instrument. That's what instrumental teachers are there for. They'll give you a smattering of practice advice. They'll give you some music theory, but they are the instrument expert. I cannot tell you how to hold your finger to get to a black key when you're playing a C9 chord. I can't tell you exactly what you should do. You do that, but what we haven't done is looked at, hey, music theory is a separate subject, No one learns how to compose and how to master music theory in piano lessons. No one learns how to play piano in theory lessons. You do little bits. You got to learn how to do a 1, 4, 5 to pass your little theory exam or whatever it is. But that's small parts. And we've been smart enough over the last few hundred years to separate these courses out for their own area of study. If you want to be serious about, music, you do several years of just music theory. You do many years of just instrumental applied. You do years of just ear training, a class just for ear training. You do years of just history. For some reason, we have not figured out that you need a separate training for practice, for how we learn. And I have, kind of fallen into that gap, and that's where I'm at. But we haven't figured that out yet, that we can just do it through tips and tricks. And we absolve ourselves by saying, it must be talent. There's some magical force, which I cannot describe, do not know what it is, can't say what it's made of, can't say where it comes from, can't say anything about it other than you'll know it when you see it. But if the person doesn't keep getting good, then the talent didn't realize itself. And if someone's bad and then they're a late bloomer, no. When they learn well, they get better. When they don't, which if they're doing it randomly, I had a great week, I learned, I don't know what I did. If they have no direction, it's very hard to learn how to do that stuff. So it is a separate, you need instrumental advice. Some of you might get it from YouTube or Facebook group, whatever. Teachers are the best bet. They will take you through it. They know what you need an instrumental teacher. But what you don't realize you need, that's why I'm beta testing it now, teacher training programs. So teachers can incorporate this into their teaching. I'm doing one with an orchestra teacher in Milwaukee and another with a solo teacher who's in an orchestra in Toledo. And I should be done in about a month. And then maybe in the new year, I'll start offering that program. But that's it.
Well, I love that. That's great.
Someone to teach you how to practice. And the easiest way to do that is by starting with deliberate practice. You brought up problem solving and how do I get into the smallest thing? This is how you do it, right? I'm going to take that down for just a second and say, we've all heard about deliberate practice, the 10,000 hour rule, Anders Ericsson, the 1993 study, all of that stuff, and the debate, whether it is talent and all this other stuff. Okay, we've all heard about it. We read books about it. How many of you can do it? Come on, you read books about it. How many of you can do it? It's too confusing. Yeah, well, what you need to do is challenge yourself. Mia Hamm, she would always move up to another level of soccer before she was ready. And how does that help you, especially beginners? Or I work with concert artists, people who are touring the world. And when I show them how it really works, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe how much time I've been wasting. I have done this so quickly and it's so much more efficient. And I just, and we just don't know how that works. So that's what you need to do. And the way you do it is if you read a book about deliberate practice, you have not reduced the cognitive load. You're reading a whole book. What do you do when the rubber meets the road, when you've never done this before, or don't know if you've done this before? You've done some of it because you wouldn't learn anything without it. So anything you've learned has been using parts of deliberate practice. You just don't know what you're doing. What do you do when you sit down? You do this.
You plan.
Make a plan. I'm going to play the first 4 measures. Okay, then you do it. Then you stop and say, this is what everyone leaves out, the reflect piece. And then you do it again and again and again. What could be better? What just happened there? Don't be surprised if you don't know. Even though you were sitting right there, moving your fingers on the instrument. Don't be surprised if you don't know. Whenever I teach deliberate practice the first time, to about 90% of people the first time I do it, so how was that? What'd you just do? Blank stare. This is how much we pay attention in practice. And I say, wait a minute, didn't you have the trumpet? You were standing right here. I could swear you had a trumpet and you were playing. Weren't you here? Yet you have no idea what you just did. We leave out the reflect piece. So it's going to take a while for a lot of people just to start finding things. But then something's going to happen. You're going to find 6 things. Oh my gosh, look at all these things that are wrong. Why are you getting upset? They were never going to get fixed unless you found them. This is a glorious, glorious day. And since there are ways to get better at anything, you'll be able to solve the problems. You just have to learn how to do them. And then look what this also does. Well, I'm going to try to fix all 6. Well, that's too many. Maybe I should try just 1. Well, I went to the one thing. Actually, there's 4 notes and 2 of them. Well, maybe I should do just 1. It breaks everything down to the smallest thing.
Now I've taught classes of students, and then my favorite is teaching one-on-one, which I really try and focus on more of that than anything else. And as you know, because you've also taught classes, everyone is at their own level. And I love your practice class that you have going on right now, because you're like, I don't care what you practice. I don't care what you work on it for like this amount of time and pick whatever you want. So it's like you're honoring, you're like meeting people where they're at, their students where they're at, and saying, let's work with what you've got going, and don't put a cap on it. Don't limit it. And I think the hardest thing for any of us, which I kind of mentioned before, is that, we learn, and maybe I didn't really mention this per se, but when you're practicing, even like that, those, let's say 3 measures or 4 measures, it feels like, and you did say this, looking at the stairs, and I use this terminology. If you look at like the whole staircase going up, you'll never get to the top. But if you take one step at a time, it's going to take as long as it's going to take. You can't limit yourself on, how long, I don't know, a Chopin piece could take you to play. It's
right. I booked a coffee house gig for 6 weeks away. Then I showed up and I couldn't play right. Whoever told you it was only going to take 6 weeks?
Right.
Not 7, not 6 weeks in a day. Sorry, but I could never resist that one. How do we make a judgment that I should have learned it in that amount of time? Maybe it was just too darn difficult and you bit off more than you can chew. Maybe you just didn't practice it right. Maybe you played better than you thought you did. Who knows? But whoever gave you the idea that all the neurobiological changes that need to take place in your brain, and you are changing your brain in significant ways when you practice, physically changing your brain, you are. Whoever told you that it was going to be 6 weeks or 5 weeks or 8 weeks? We as humans tend to think, once we kind of get exhausted doing something, that we've done enough work and should have achieved something by now. And there's no reason for that, really. And
it's so, gosh, it's strange, but it's reality as a musician. And you mentioned something like this in one of your webinars, like, and I teach this too. I'm like, I'm right-handed, right? So a lot of people are right-handed. My husband's left-handed, but and some people are left-handed. But for me, being a right-handed, my left hand is a little slower. So I say it's the slower child. You have to have a little bit more patience with the left hand for my right hand people. But both hands, it's amazing to me how we have to train them when it comes to learning the instrument. It's not just like, okay, pick up, a bag of groceries and put it here and put it there. You don't think about it. You drive a car, you just know what you're doing. But when you're playing the instrument, going back to really get to know your instrument, but also your regions and knowing where you're playing and what you're playing, and give yourself that permission to take as long as it's going to take to learn.
And what you need during those times are the ability to come up with small problems that are real, genuine challenges. It may only be 4 notes, but that are real, and then fix it. Dopamine. Then you move on to the next challenge. Okay, all right. What's the next challenge? Oh, I got to figure that out. Oh, I can't believe this. I'm getting worse. When am I ever going to? Oh, there it is. Dopamine. No. And then you get more. Go ahead.
Sorry. No, so tell us more, with the amount of research that you've done, tell us a little bit more about the brain and how the brain works. Let's say, I've practiced maybe throughout my day, I put in an hour, like on and off, right? Mm-hmm. So at the end of my day, and I'm just focusing on me, but I'm talking about general musicians who practice. At the end of the day, what is our brain doing? Are we still practicing? Are we losing what we put in? Do we remember it? Do we retain it? How does that all work?
Wow, well, that's enough for about 12 books. It's interesting you say, as our brain. So let's just start with this. Whenever you do anything, you're changing your brain. It's responding to what is going on. And if it's anything new, it's making adjustments as to how it deals with what this new thing is. What it's doing is it's creating new neural networks. It's connecting neurons to other neurons. How everything we think, every move we make, everything we do is governed by neural networks. When I want to do this with my hand, okay, that's a specific neural network firing off. If I do this again, it's the same neural network firing off again. So when we're doing motor skills, And this works for cognitive skills too, because cognitive skills are represented by neural networks. So what we're doing is we're changing our brain. We're trying to figure out, so now it depends how much skill we already have. If we can already do 90% of what we're learning, then the brain's already automatized those skills. That's getting it into long-term memory. You asked about what happens at the end of the day. What happens at the end of the day is sleep, where memory is consolidated into long-term memory. And then you have to work on something which is spacing and interleaving, called retrieval practice, which is something none of us do. None of us. That's why we go into tests and think we're going to get an A and end up getting a C, because we learned the material, but we didn't do retrieval practice. But I digress. And then, so what you do is you change your brain that way, and you can do it quite quickly. For instance, doing something like contextual interference, which is what I usually start the practice class with, which is taking anything you want to play, anything, and this works for other types of knowledge as well, and making it different so that it becomes harder. So the easiest way to do this that we think of is using dotted rhythms, right? We play something and then we play with a dotted rhythm. Now, how many of you out there at some point in life had someone introduce you to the concept of dotted rhythms? Right? And you're like, oh, you have problems with that scale passage or with that chord progression or whatever. Say, I want you to try this. Try playing with the dotted rhythm. And you struggled. And what's going on? And then you got better at it. We'll try this rhythm. We'll try that. And then you got better. And then you got better. And then what happened? Whenever I see people, it's always the same thing. Well, I still do it, but it doesn't work like it did before. Like the first couple times I did it, it was amazing. Like it made me way better. And now I do it because my teacher told me to do it. How is it that our teachers have never, and I was never told this, I have a master's degree. How is it our teachers don't tell us it's not about the rhythm? It's about interfering with the context until it becomes difficult. Once you're good at the rhythms and you can just rattle them off, they're not helping you anymore. No one I know ever has come up. In fact, I see people out there selling books on this stuff who want to talk about varied practice and this and that. They don't know the concept of desirable difficulty. Which is,
would you say, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you.
Please.
Would you say that's in comparison to understanding? So what I mean by that is I want to learn something. So in order for me to retain it and learn it, I guess, what's the difference between, I guess, understanding and retaining? I don't think there's much difference. But if I want to learn something, I need to understand it so then I can grow with it. Because if I don't understand what I'm doing, like for instance, if I'm doing, three measures, playing three measures, I have to kind of understand. For me, and my teaching, I want to be able to understand what steps I'm taking, what regions I'm in, where I'm going, because that gives me kind of a roadmap.
Yes, that's the first stage. Yes, that's the first stage. You go through this and say, I have to know where the notes are. The first plan is knowing where the notes. I don't think anyone disagrees with that first plan. Once your fingers reach the instrument, right? Some people say, well, go home and analyze the theory. Okay, whatever. That's all fine and good. Whatever your assignment is, there's nothing wrong with going home and analyzing it first if you have the theory skills to do so. There's nothing wrong with that. Go home and just look for the hard parts. Okay, whatever. That's cool too. Or go home and just play whatever it is. But we know that when the fingers hit the instrument, the plan is to get all the notes right. So and you do it. Oh my gosh, the third and fourth note I can't really get, or I don't know what region I'm in here or something like that. Okay, well, let me just double check. Oh, okay, that's this region. Oh, I thought it was this. Bam, that's learning right there. When you say, I thought it was this, but now I see it's this. That is the first stage, the understanding. And here's what you're doing. You're trying to get this stuff out of your working memory and into your long-term memory. Working memory holds somewhere around 5 to 7 pieces of information at a time. That's why you forget someone's name 2 seconds after they tell you, because another couple of pieces of information come in. But if you're only able to deal with that amount of information, how is it you can have discussions about vastly complex topics, whether it's music history, politics, sports, it doesn't matter. You can have, but how is it? Where's all that information coming from? It's stored in your long-term memory. And you used a good a term there as you were saying it. Well, I need to understand it so I can retain it. Retain is only the first part. The part we always miss is retrieve. It's not enough to get it into your memory. Yes.
No, with retrieval though, there's I think there's a line in the sand, because I could play 3 measures over and over again because they're in different regions. I'm trying to get it or to retain it. However, the fine line is over practicing those 3 measures, because in your practice class, the Saturday class, 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and then choose something different, right? Because that's the interleaving. So I'm wanting to express to our listeners how important that is, because taking the focus off of that frustration, you stop. Okay, so when we I tell my students, if you get frustrated with a piece, you just need to stop, because then it's not fun anymore, and your brain's already thinking about, is there any more ice cream in the freezer?
That's mental fatigue. You cannot practice through mental fatigue. But if you practice this way, not through mental fatigue, it's not lifting weights. You don't push through. But if you push to right when you get frustrated, realize that you need a break or that you need to quit for the day. And then if you keep doing that over the course of days, you'll be able to go for an extra 3 or 4 minutes. And then you'll find another 3 or 4 minutes, and you'll find it keeps, because you're building something in the prefrontal cortex of your brain that governs your ability to control yourself and focus that hard. It's a developable skill. So you have to learn how to focus this. I don't care if you're practicing 30 minutes a day and you do this and you can only go 5. You made more progress in those 5 minutes than you used to in your 30. I promise you that. And go ahead.
No, you had mentioned, I think it was Saturday's class, about going to the gym and working out. Like you're not going to be looking like the Hulk after 2 hours of one workout. You just have to be consistent with repetition of practicing, of working out, and be okay with that.
But
time.
Unlike the gym, you can have small victories every day where you literally can do things that you couldn't do before. Just because it's not play something the way this great artist played it, I couldn't even get through the first 4 measures in time. Now I can. Trust me, that will make you feel great. Then the next day, I'm doing more. And before you know it, I learned the whole piece. How about that?
What's your advice or suggestions? I'll try and be brief on this. So let's say we're playing, I'm working on Nocturne by Billy Joel, right? It jumps from different regions on the keyboard. And so it's a beautiful piece. My point is I just went blank. The timing, the dynamics. When we're practicing portions of the song, and this is not just for me, this is for the listeners who are musicians and who are students as well. You talk about, and I talk about it too when I teach, don't worry about the dynamics. Don't worry about the timing. Just find out where your steps are. Find out where you're dancing. Find out where you're going. But then when do you bring in the timing, and do you suggest timing is just follow it like by the book? Or for me, I'm like, let's put a little of your dynamics in there. Or do you feel like the dynamics that the composer has put in there is just like, that's got to be that way?
This is an area of great controversy, especially in classical music, which is what I studied, but all over the place. If you're going to do repetitions, do them with the feeling and do them with I understand where that's coming from. Now, who's giving you that advice? Someone who's automatized the skills of 1,000 different shapes of crescendos. Someone who's played for so long that their fingers respond. Yes, I can sight read things and make them sound decent the first time I see them. It's a rising line. I'll throw in a little swell and it'll sound. But I've been doing 40 years of formal study to do this. So this advice that we're getting is well-meaning, but it's too much cognitive load. If you can't play the notes, how the heck are you going to control your dynamics?
I love that. Yeah.
So most of us are at a level where I don't care what it is. You first need to play the notes. Now, here's the thing. It's not the most elegant saying, but interpretation is a technique first, or it won't exist last. Okay. So now you go to your interpretation. And how do we teach it? Because I taught it this way for a long, long time. Put a crescendo there. No. Get louder there. Yes. Feel it. Here, now, do this. And you get it shaped up just right. And it's nice and say, there, play it that way. Okay, cool. Let's go on. Now, the next week they come in and they don't do it. Well, I thought I was doing it. That's what they always say. I thought I was doing it. And you do think you're doing it. They're being very honest. What we don't do is say, wow, you don't know how to control a crescendo. Why am I trying to get you to do a crescendo over and over again here in a lesson, and you're not in full control? I, as the teacher, say, whoa, let's back off. Let's do this. Maybe let's take this thing and play it with a decrescendo. Then let's do a swell. Then let's do every other note really loud. And let's do all these little bits of contextual interference that give us greater dynamic control. Depending on where the student was at, I might say, listen, go home and play your 2-octave scales and try to play the first note as quiet as possible, the last note as loud as possible, and be even through all of them. I would do it as a technique first. Then you can layer it in. It's kind of like this. If you're teaching a kid who recently learned to walk to dribble a basketball, you don't do both at the same time. Or to walk and dribble a basketball. You don't do both at the same time. They learn to walk, they get better at walking, then you do dribbling by itself, then you do it together, because you have to automatize both skills before you bring them together. And the problem with this old advice, which is well-meaning, I understand exactly where it's coming from, it's for people with higher level skills than most of us are at yet. Okay, because I was getting this advice as like a freshman in college, and I just started reading music the year before. I was a self-taught rock and roll guitar player. I'm like, really? Really? You want me to play? I don't have enough control yet. Then you can layer the other things in. When you get other skills and you do more crescendos and you do more things like that, that you're muted, Lisa, just so you know. When you get more skills, then you can layer the other. Sure. Then you can layer the other stuff in. This is related to the Dunning-Kruger effect, where people with higher level skills, you have to be really careful with this when you're a teacher, especially if you have really high level skills. You will assume knowledge in your student that isn't there. And that's the kiss of death for learning.
Yeah,
they will try and not be able to do it and feel like they don't have talent, right? All of us teachers have an out in music. Well, you just didn't have enough talent. That's not it. Anyone can do anything. And you have to start at a level at which we can handle it, and most of us want to start at a higher level than that. But
yes.
So
I have a student that
until you've automatized the skills. That's separation of the two until you've automatized the skills. Do one or the other. In fact, some people might want to take this advice. Listen, if you're trying to learn something really, really hard and you haven't been playing that long, why don't you try learning 2 or 3 easy pieces with crescendos and decrescendos and do that and get those skills going where the cognitive load is lower so that you can go into the other thing. And you were talking about this earlier. Go ahead, please.
We're just about out of time, and I could talk to you for another hour, and there's so much to talk about. Please tell us again for our listeners, how can students get in touch with you? And how can they learn more about your classes?
Yeah, I'm at gregggoodhart.com, GreggGoodhart. And there's like a free thing there that'll show you how to do dotted rhythms and contextual interference. It'll make you better at something you're struggling with now. It's free. There's actually a bunch of free stuff on there. There's classes for sale. There's all sorts of stuff. And you can always get in touch with me at hello@gregggoodhart.com.
Well, Gregg, thank you so much for being on the show today. I'm all about keeping music alive and being an inspiration for our students. And
I had to add that because I wrote that down when you said that at the beginning. I wrote that down. You said keep music alive. I will make this very quick. You want to keep music alive, folks? Stop letting kids quit because they don't get it. Keep them in there because they do get it. Not forcing them. They'll want to be there when they actually learn. That'll help keep music alive.
Love it. Well, thank you so much, Gregg. We will be in touch. And again, to our listeners, thank you for being part of our show today. And you know how to get in touch with Gregg. And you're not hard to find. Gregg Goodhart. You got the 3 Gs. So thank you so much, Gregg. And I will see you soon.
Thanks. See you soon.
Okay. Take care. Thank you so much for tuning in today. And I always like to end our show with a little piano playing. We have about a minute left. If you are a student of music, if you're interested in taking lessons, Gregg has been a great inspiration to me, and I know you will enjoy learning from him as well. Please help keep music alive. Thank you, Reb.